better roll them dice. You never know if it could change your life. Take a chance, you're neither wrong or right. You never know if you don't roll them dice. You better roll them dice. You never know if
Matt, I have grave news.
Oh no.
I have something very serious and important to tell you.
Grave news? Is it from the necromancer?
This is extremely significant. The thing that I have to tell you, Matt, begun these Clone Wars have.
No, not again. Why would they make so many clones? There's too many.
Too many. An order of thousands upon thousands of clones from Kamino has arrived at our doorstep, ready to be enlisted in the battle against Wizards of the Coast, and here they are.
Listen, if you play D&D 5e right now during this time, you can tell your children, or let's say your children's age, who's their weird friend who lives next door, that you fought with their father in the Clone Wars.
Yes, you can. And you should tell them that.
Yeah.
Because by the time your kids are able to hear that, Clone Wars will be like, the movie will be like multiple generations old. Matt, did you know that there are like full-grown adults who can drink alcohol who were not born when Attack of the Clones came out?
Yeah. Man, what a disappointing bit of cloning. Like, if you're going to clone people, you should have like clones of like Darth Maul and Yoda like fighting each other, right? Why just clone like some schlubby bounty hunt, Australian bounty hunter?
Greatest New Zealander, first of all, and greatest bounty hunter ever. Actually, I don't even know if like in the universe of Star Wars he's even like the best.
Yeah, I know. I'm like a Dingar man myself. Dingar.
Because all he really does is capture Han and then like get thrown into the Sarlacc pit. All of his is he what?
He's patient. He just waits. That's right. Everyone else is too eager.
Yeah. It's all on account of his aura farming. Just standing around looking cool in his sick armor. I don't know how good he actually was, but I guess they decided that. What was his name? Django. Right. He was the guy that we needed to see 10,000 of for some reason.
Anyway, so we're talking about 5e clones. And if you listen to our last episode, you know that OGL plus Weariness with 5e plus other publishers looking for that 5e money plus the 2024 5e being more or less mostly the same has led to a plethora of 5e clones. And these, again, range from things that are almost exactly the same game system that just tweak a couple of things to things that are trying to evoke the feeling of a really good D&D from the ground up rule set that's completely different.
And as we mentioned last time, it was correct to jump on this bandwagon because a lot of these projects, all of the ones we're going to talk about, made a lot of money. They raised a lot. Sometimes a lot. But in every case, a pretty substantial amount for a TTRPG. That clearly indicates hunger and interest in this type of thing. And like we said last time, I don't think this is there can be only one situation. This is not a Highlander problem.
Yeah.
I think let 1,000 TTRPGs bloom. We are hoping for the Xerox treatment, the Kleenex, never mind, not that one.
The Frisbee
Armalite rifle, but that's not right. AR, assault rifle. It's
an assault rifle 15 clone. Yeah,
we want it to get to the point where when you say I'm playing D&D, people say, "What kind?"
Yes.
That's what we want.
So last time we talked about Nimble 5e and DC 20. Which one do we want to launch into this time?
Let's hit the ground running. Let's talk about Level Up.
Okay.
I think this is going to take. Yeah, let's talk about Level Up.
Yeah, Level Up 5e raised about $1 million, 700,000 pounds on Kickstarter. I think last year, 2024, and it is 2023. This one's been around for a while, and this is from some people attached to Ian World, so some real veterans, TTRPG forums and news and 5e design, and it was marketed as, do you want more advanced? Do you want AD&D for 5th edition? Do you want more options, more stuff? Do you want a more complicated version of 5th edition?
Yes, that's what we got, right?
If you're curious about this one, I would say This is the one that if you're like, I find D&D character creation lacking. I know there are people out there who that is their immediate dissatisfaction with 5e. This is a system designed to fix that.
On my list, but it is there.
Yeah.
That is something that I don't love about 5e at this point. So, this was of interest to me for that reason. I do sort of miss the crunchiness of certain 3.5 character creation rules.
I would say that if you're looking for other big picture things about level up 5e, is that in addition to more detailed character creation rules at every step along your path as characters, they've also redone a lot of actually how the game works. It's still very, very recognizable as 5e, but a lot of little things work differently. Everything has been rewritten. Not everything, but a lot of things have been rewritten.
I want to open our discussion of Level Up 5e by saying that this book is 700 pages long.
Rob, it's only 659. Come on.
Okay.
Only a 600 That's just there's also the monster guide too.
That's right. That's just the core rules.
And the DM's guide.
The core rules are 659 pages long.
I think when you add in the other two books, you're at 1,000. You're hitting 1,000 pages.
Yeah. Here's my feeling about that. I've read thousands of pages of things that did not need to be thousands of pages and did not deserve my reading of them before, which is not necessarily the case here. So it isn't a problem in and of itself that there's 1,000 pages here. But I really do think that you need to earn those pages if you are going to write something this long. And if I'm coming at this from both a GM's perspective and a TTRPG critic's perspective, this is, in my opinion, a big mistake. We have been praising RPG books recently that do this in fewer words, and I'm really strongly leaning toward that in all ways. I think we've learned an awful lot as a community, as designers in the past 20 or 30 years about, do you need all of this space to do what you're trying to do? And I would like to see things go in the other direction. So I don't want to come out of the gate negative, but I really do have to raise a flag on this before we get any deeper, because it is simply too long. And I will talk about where I think specifically some stuff should have been cut, because some of the length is necessary because it is more it is a deeper role-playing game than 5e, but it is simply too long.
Yeah, it is longer than the Pathfinder 2e core book by almost 100 pages, which is pretty long. And I think if you're where did that space go? Essentially the character creation school sections, lineage, heritage, backgrounds, classes, that's 300 pages. So you're at 300 pages, and then you're also adding stuff beyond that. That's how you get to a 600-page rule book.
Without looking, I think a big chunk of the 2e book also is equipment and spells and lists of things at the end, long lists. But it is, again, one of the things that 2e does well is it is organized in such a way that it's easier to get through that. The organization in this one is just, here's some words, go nuts.
Yeah.
There's a lot.
Here's a thing I want to praise about how a lot of the character building things, and so there's a bunch of stuff with other optional rules and the way what is essentially ancestry and background in D&D gets broken up into other things. We can talk about those in a second. But the core of this book is the classes. And they did something that I think I like. You and I have long agreed that one of the most fun character classes to play and to build is the 5e Warlock. Because it's got a simple core, and then you get to like just kind of pick little wacky things, like little wacky features, right? They're invocations. And they've given every class that treatment. And from a design principle, I like that.
Yeah.
Every class gets invocations.
Yes, that's right. Basically, every class has their own, some kind of version of invocations. And I do, from a design perspective, I think this is neat. I think that the Warlock is the best design and the most fun 5e class. It has lots of choices that are flavorful, but not overpowered. And each individual Warlock can be very, very different. And I like that. The upshot, downshot is that it is complicated. There's like a lot more in Level Up to know about and read through. But I think that I agree with Matt. The end result is the classes are a lot more interesting and they have a lot more to do.
Yeah. I mean, the downside of this is in the details. Not all of them are as good as the like core set of Warlock invocations. And of course we have blindsiders on because I'm sure there are some Warlock invocations that are just stupid and uninteresting for character building,
some
but
of them
we've
stupid.
forgotten about them, right? And with these, we're seeing them fresh. I've turned to a random class. It's the Ranger. One of the Ranger tricks or knacks, they're invocations, the things you get along the way as you level up, is Huntsman. When you use the Hunt and Gather journey activity, you gain advantage on your survival checks. Is that interesting? Maybe. I don't think so. Not in the same way as, you have the Devil's Sight or Agonize, the Repelling Blast or something like that.
There are definitely some dud Warlock invocations, but I do think that based on my cursory examination of the level up classes, that there's just a lot more like cruft. This was a big problem in 3.5 is that there were a lot of trap options, beats and abilities that if you didn't know better could really like tank your character. And my feeling is with level up is that the problem is similar, that if you aren't careful and you don't know what you're doing, that you're going to end up with there are some much more optimal abilities than others.
Yeah, it's the problem of you've added a ton of options, so every class feels as exciting to build and hopefully to play as the Warlock. It's just, there are a lot of options that, like, why would you ever pick this when this other one also exists?
Right.
Sorry for derailing us. Talked about the big picture. This is huge. This is more detailed in building your characters. Now that I've said, like, two things that I mostly like about this one, I have to say one that's a big knock in its disfavor, which is, to me, the art is pretty subpar. It feels like a 3E third-party book. It is mostly not good, and the layout is, Pathfinder 2E has a similar length book, but the layout is perfect and easy to navigate. This feels like reading 600 pages of home brewery.
Yeah, the art is very inconsistent. Some of it is not bad. A lot of it is pretty low quality. And we've discussed this before. I don't hate when there's like a variety of styles, but when the delta in quality is so substantial, that is sort of like jarring to me. And the layout is not great. And I think this is a part of the problem that makes it 659 pages long, is poor layout and also questionable layout decisions. An example of this.
Yeah, there's like talents that are split among 2 pages, like, splitting features, like it's not good.
Yeah. An example of this that would have saved, a few dozen pages is that there's a spell list at the end of every class, which is something that 5e or that Wizards has done before, but is not necessary, right? You can there are better ways to organize and show your class spells. It's smart to like indicate it in a certain way in the index of spells, but this just means that spells are repeated multiple times and just greatly pads the length of the classes section. There are other gripes I have with how with the natural language used, the unwillingness to sort of get down to nuts and bolts. I've been looking at some of the like maneuvers and invocation type things, and it is really hard to get a handle on everything that's there, what's good, what's bad. It's just it's a waterfall of information.
Yeah, I think I don't know. I feel like if you're not going to have the like layout chops and the art chops where like most art is just a character standing there or something like that,
right?
Then you can't. Those are the barriers to making a 600-page role-playing book. But we're not opposed to a 600-page book. You just like you've got to have the best layout person in the biz if you want to do it.
That's what I'm saying. You need to earn that length. It needs to be really good. And I feel like this is unfair, but I'm gonna do it anyway because I think it's a thing that we should, I don't know, draw attention to, or I think it's worth discussing. But like, as we mentioned, this raised over $1 million.
Depending on exchange rates.
Exchange rates. You can pay professionals. You can pay multiple professionals to do layout, to do art, to do many things. And I know that takes work and effort and it's challenging, but like you can take like maybe I have like a little project manager brain, but like I feel like you could spend like a tiny fraction of that money, still pay your team well for the work they put in designing this, and like get a really nice like polished book out of it. And I don't know why they didn't. Same with DC-20. There was the same. That one's not done though. Sorry. So to be fair, DC-20 is technically still in beta, so they have time.
Now let me switch back to something I did like about this, which is building your character, not just the class thing. I think if you ask me, okay, 5e's got this, you pick a species and you pick a background. How would you actually want to do this logically if you were still within that framework but kind of starting over? And I think the answer I would pick is the system Level Up chose, which is you have a heritage, as in who are your parents, a culture where you grew up, right? And there's like a suggestion like, okay, hey, if you're a dwarf, this might be the default, idea for a deep dwarf or something. What was your occupation? Like, what'd you do before you were adventuring? And what do you want, like, your destiny to be? What is your personal story? Is it chaos? Is it seeking knowledge? Like, what's your goal? And so we divide this 2 thing into a 4 thing that, like, both makes sense, avoids some of the weirdness of 2014 5e. And it just seems logical to me.
Yeah, doesn't Pathfinder do something similar? Other games have done this, but I think this is
Pathfinder does.
I think this
almost
is
the same thing.
Critical going forward, in my opinion, and also just like more interesting to divide these things up and allow for a little bit more complexity in species and culture. A lot of thought has gone into origin, which I do also appreciate.
Now, the downside to this is that you tend to get 2 or 3 things from each of these 4 options you pick at character creation before you even get to class. So your level 1 character is going to have like a ton of like little features from each of these. And the thing is, kind of like the background characteristics or species characteristics, none of them are like super transformative in how you play the game. They're all kind of little flavorful things that a couple will help you in like combat or exploration or adventuring life. But your character sheet will be filled up with a lot of shit before you've even begun. And I think if I was doing this, right, which I'm not, so it's bad comparison to make, is just like each of these is just like one thing, like one skill. Like they don't even need to be a new set of rules for me. It's just like pick a skill. This background gives you a skill proficiency or whatever.
Yeah. I also I don't know how much this matters, but I feel like it is going to be impossible to catch broken combinations and builds ahead of time with this system, more so than in 5e. I don't see that. It's just too complex to really like know without like theory crafting everything, like what sort of insane things that you can just out of the gate do.
Yeah. I did not like try to build a broken character, but my sense was after reading this, if the thing you were worried about 5e is the fact that if you dip one level in sorcerer and then paladin and then like you can create this insane character, I don't care about this. But this will still have that.
Oh yeah,
for good or ill.
Maybe that's what you like, and maybe that's what you're looking for. But yeah.
Like the thing I liked the most was so 4 of these things, the like heritage and the culture and the background one, they're all like giving you a little thing. Oh, when you're walking on one foot in the shade, right? You have advantage on intelligence skills or whatever. They're all those types of features, except for the Destiny one, which is here are the things that you can like get inspiration from. And I had wished that since they were doing this with Destiny, like find a new mechanical way to fit this in without like adding more complication to the game. Do that with some of the other things, but I think they want to stick so closely to 5e. We're still going to get a level 1 character with 10 features.
I like the Destiny one the most out of these new divisions. It reminds me, Invisible Sun leans pretty heavily on a similar. It's sort of like the driving purpose of your character. I think it's great. Actually, I think it's great. I think more RPGs should build into character creation, like what your character is trying to achieve, and some long to medium term rewards for achieving those things. I think this is a really cool idea. I don't love, like you, Matt, how it was implemented, but I like that it exists.
Yeah. I just wish, they had gone back to, let's say, the culture Wood Elf and been like, do we really need Wood Elves to be 5 feet faster, right? Do we really need them to have these, let's see, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 features, right? Could we condense Wood Elf culture down to one cool feature?
I mean, this is my like big picture complaint, which is similar to the one that I had about DC-20, and what I liked about Nimble is what they've done here is they've taken 5e and they've kept basically everything, and then added a lot more. Like they didn't really cut, and they did remove some things that didn't make sense. They've swapped some of the classes for things that, like, the monk is now an adept, and the paladin's now a herald, and barbarian is a berserker. Mostly, it's all the same things, and then a lot more stuff. And I would have preferred some winnowing, I suppose.
Here's the last, like, big picture, really positive thing I have to say about this, is that of the ones we've talked about, like Nimble, it knows exactly who this is for. This is for people who like 5e,
yes,
and they want it to be simpler, but without cutting away the fun stuff. We don't just want simple as in let's just play with a modified version of the D&D basic rules from 1974. We want a simpler 5e, and it, I think, sells to that perfectly well. This knows exactly who its audience is for as well. It's for people who want 5e that is more richly textured in terms of how you build your character. And like that's a clear driving mission. And if that is what you want, you should take a look at this.
I do have like another like big picture piece of praise, and that's that as a lover of martial characters, I really like that Level Up 5e has combat maneuvers sort of built in to the heart of the game. It's basically like
everyone
5e
gets them. If you're a martial character, they're
Yes.
like your spells.
They're like your spells. You get other stuff, but you also get maneuvers. It's like having like the Tome of Battle like built in to the game. And my complaint about this is that they don't get listed until the very, very end of the book. I wish that because you'll
they're like
read about
spells. Yeah.
Right. You'll read about your class like using exertion points, and you're like, what's an exertion point? And, you've got to skip all the way to the end to like get this explained. I don't like the implementation is okay. You have exertion points equal to twice your proficiency bonus. Fine, it's whatever. It's another pool. We love pools. But I do think these are neat and fun, and they give marshals something fun to do. And I approve of this. I would have loved for them to cut like a bunch of other stuff and make this sort of like more the heart of the game instead of doing all of these things. But I do really, really like, I think,
did we need the Bastion rules in this book too?
I think they're well implemented and fun. And I think it's cool that all the martial characters get them. So that is neat. I definitely approve of that. And that sort of like segues into my big picture praise of this is that like it's too long and there's a lot of things that I didn't like love about it. But this is a labor of love. Like this to me reads like people who are really enthusiastic about this type of game and know exactly what they want. And they've done it. It's not for me. And I think it gets in its own way a bunch.
Yeah.
But I really do think that there's a lot of heart here and a lot of really cool stuff to be enjoyed.
Yeah, I think the things holding us back is its, insane length, and its lack of good design, right? Sometimes when you're looking for a subclass, like all of the headers are the same and you can't find it, but for what you want to do, like I think this is what you get when you get some people who really love 5e and have really listened to both their own inner dungeon master when playing 5e a lot and to the like general what's bubbling up in the community about complaints of people who really love 5e, right? Which is, oh, hey, these non-spellcasting characters don't seem that interesting. I wish character creation, these backgrounds that are so generic made more sense. Like, why can't I play an elf raised by dwarves? All that kind of stuff. Why can't I play a warlord, aka the marshal? Well, they've added that class, and then this is what you get. I would say, the problem is this. It just needs to be pared down a little bit, and maybe look at all the things in 5e and cut how one of them works.
Yeah, I have
but they didn't cut any of them. So if you're one of those people who are like, actually, if you take something away, I view that as a negative, and those people exist. They're valid in their own way. Then this
I mean, I don't get it. I don't know. I don't understand the attachment, but I do know those people are there. And if that's you, then you should check this out for sure.
I have some specifics if we're done talking about the big picture stuff.
Sure. I guess I jumped into the specifics, so like let's do it.
We're already there. I was really excited when I was reading the first couple pages of this book because they're like, hey, so there's this thing called advantage. Here's how it works. We've added this thing called expertise, right? So advantage is when the DM or, the circumstances of adventuring play, your own cleverness give you a circumstantial advantage from outside your character. You get advantage or disadvantage on this. Expertise is when you get a feature, and it starts as a D4. You add it to a roll. If you have expertise in a roll, you throw an extra D4 to the roll. I'm like, that's great. That's like how the Bless spell works. That was one of the optional rules in D&D Next. It was a lot of fun back then. And then if you get expertise a second time, that D4 turns into a D6, and that D6 into a D8, et cetera, et cetera. I like that in theory a lot. And then I was reading through the book, and there's still a million class features that just give you advantage on things. So
I feel like expertise was underused. I agree.
Yeah.
I also liked that.
If you're gonna come up with a big design philosophy like this, you gotta stick to it, or at least tell me why you didn't stick to it, right? Like, yeah.
I mean, yeah.
And again, I'm fine with like a specific spell. If Blur gives attackers disadvantage against you, that's fine. Blur is very specific, right? But like, there are so many features that are just like, you have advantage in this skill check. Okay. I'm like, well, the fun part of advantage, I think, is that at least in the first couple levels, there are very few things that just give you advantage. So it encourages players to be creative with the environment and the DM to reward thinking and just be like, here's advantage. But as you're always getting it from other sources, it takes away from its specialness.
I really like these days. I want my design to make sense, to be simple if possible. I want to be elegant, I suppose, is a word we use a lot. And I gotta say, like, I didn't really love it, but like DC 20's, like, here's you get like multiple instances of advantage and disadvantage was weird and messy, but like it made sense. Like it had a sort of logic to it. And this expertise thing just feels like it's been sort of like grafted on to advantage and disadvantage. And instead of feeling like a clean, like neat, like new way to measure prowess, it's just like, here's another thing. It's just like another set of rules, another, die to keep track of. It doesn't feel pleasant the way that like, Pathfinder 2E, you get a bunch of like pluses, right? You just get a bunch of like bonuses, but every 5 points you get above the target number, like you have an additional effect, right?
The pluses matter, and they need to be static for a reason.
That's like a nice, like, elegant, like, it's complicated, but it makes sense, right? You know that like these numbers go up and you get better results up to a certain point. That's neat. This feels nebulous, and I like the idea, but I don't like how it's implemented, I guess.
Imagine, if you will, designers that were not afraid to take something away from 5e.
Yes.
So, for example, you still have expertise die, but you also still have proficiency bonus, right? So not only are you adding an expertise die a lot of the time, you're still adding your proficiency bonus and, of course, your ability modifier. You could imagine a system that just converted all of those to a type of die, right? The elegance of the system is you're never adding numbers to things. You're just adding extra die to your roll.
Yes.
Would that work in practice? I don't know, but it would make more sense to me.
I think it would make more sense. I think it'd be more fun and more pleasant. Matt, I don't like proficiency. I don't think it's a good rule. I have never liked it. I think it's like a Band-Aid that 5e used to make the numbers work. I do not like when one of my least favorite things with these clones is when they keep stuff like proficiency, like that. You don't need that. You don't need that.
Right.
Don't use that.
Here's another, like, again, we're just spitballing here. We presented one way, just replace everything with dice, so people don't have to keep track of numbers and dice. Why not get rid of just proficiency and like level up people's ability scores, right? You get 3 abilities based on your class that are going to continue to go up as you level, right? By a +1 modifier, right? But yeah, we're not there on this particular clone. Let me
this is yeah. Go ahead.
Well, I was going to move to a different specific example. So
no, but move to another specific example. Yeah.
Okay, like I agree that the martial abilities and the like weapon abilities are like very cool. I like them a lot. I think this is, unless I'm getting this confused with another one, this is one where like weapons can have like parrying and stuff, right?
Yeah, I think so.
Yeah, but like some of them are just like, this is from the Mist and Shade Martial School. Pickpocket, 1 exertion point. 3rd degree Mist and Shade reaction. You snatch something from your enemy. When a creature is within your reach, you can use your reaction to make a sleight of hand check against it. And then you have to go look at sleight of hand, right? Which doesn't have like a really specific to this degree, like set of things that you can do. It's like you can, pick a lock, or you can steal an item. And I guess it's like, oh boy, like we didn't rewrite the sleight of hand description to fit with what we're imagining it to be. Like I imagine the way this reaction is supposed to work in practice is if when someone's within your reach, you can just steal an item from them, right? We give you permission to do that. But it also like doesn't fit with how reaction, there's no triggering thing for the reaction. You get to decide when you use it. And then okay, here's the example of what sleight of hand says. Sleight of hand, a character makes a sleight of hand check to perform ledger domain, pickpocket, hide an object on another creature, make a concealed hand signal, or otherwise deceive the eyes with feats of agility. Dexterity is nearly always the ability score used with this skill. So it's like, so when I have the pickpocket ability and a creature is within my reach, I can at any time use my reaction to deceive their eyes. I'm just like, what is it? Is this limiting what my character can do? Or is it making it a fun, exciting thing I can do in combat? To me, this feels limiting in a way, but I don't know what your opinion is on stuff like this.
No, I agree. I don't really. I mean, I said I liked the maneuvers, and I do like some of them. In general, I feel like they needed another pass, both for like readability and like rules interactions, because it's very easy for me to find examples of ones that are confusing, and I'm not an expert on the system, right? Like it's long, so but are not clear, and I think they could be written in a way that was clearer, but also are, and this gets back to like one of my like big picture criticisms, like there's either things that are like very obviously the best choice or the right choice, and ones that are like big time trap options, like Here's another example. Charge, 1 point. This is from the Rapid Current School. It's 1st degree. It uses your action. Flinging yourself, you barrel towards an enemy with your weapon held at the ready to unleash an attack before they can react. Move 30 feet in a straight line and make a melee weapon attack. You can't take the dash action and use this maneuver on the same round. Like, this one is really, unlike the last one, is really, really good. It lets you move twice your speed and still attack, right? Compared to the last one where I'm like, and so many of the other ones we're referring to, it's like, ooh, wow, this one is not good. Like, this is exactly what I like want from a maneuver. Yeah, but that's also just charge. That used to be just a thing that you could do. That's a great example. Here's a great example of, so that's a 1 point rapid current maneuver. Just on the next page, there's another 1 point rapid current maneuver called Speed over Strength. With practiced agility, you weave around an opponent wielding a more cumbersome weapon, quickly darting in to strike with a lighter armament. When a creature attacks you with a melee weapon that has the heavy property, or a large-sized or larger creature attacks you with a natural weapon, you can use your reaction to make a melee weapon attack against it using a weapon that has a dual-wielding or finesse property. Okay, so here's the thing.
Yeah.
That sounds neat, I guess. that one inherently limits you to having a dual wielding or finesse weapon on your person at all times, and it only triggers if you're under attack by somebody who's using a big weapon or a large sized creature, which may happen. It could, or
Right.
it might not happen at all. This is strictly, though, inferior to the one that Matt just described. Like, it is flavorful and thematic, but like this to me smacks of like a trap option. And I guess like what I'm saying is there's a lot of this. There's a lot of this, and it's not clear and not easy to pick up on the good choices, I suppose.
I don't know. I think overall, the maneuvers, despite us bringing up two that like suck, and I think we could fairly say like, yeah, you can pick any 3 spells from any edition of D&D, and 2 of them will be way worse than one of the other spells of the same power level, and that's completely fair. I think all we're saying is that when you go at the king, like, you better not miss. Like this.
That's right.
Or if you miss, you better have a 1 point second degree reaction that lets you re-roll that miss and turn it into a hit, to use the parlance of this game system. Anyway,
yeah.
I would say the maneuvers are really interesting, and if you have wanted like Tome of Battle combat spells, this game has them. The spells are mostly the same. There's a lot that have like rare versions of the spells that are just slightly better. I thought that was neat, especially because it didn't take up much room, unlike the rest of this book. Yeah. Any final thoughts about Level Up 5e that we didn't get to? Obviously, we put 659 pages into reading this. We did not read the 300-page like monster and treasure books. So,
I mean, this is a monstrosity. I think there's, like I said, I really think that there's a lot of passion and heart and good design in here. I think that the problem is that it's shackled to like the 5e chassis, that they weren't willing to get rid of some stuff. It's too long. It's too much. I would have liked to have seen them narrow their focus. You don't need all of that stuff. Not all of it is good. Most of the new stuff I like. I think it's good ideas. The problem comes when it's trying to retain coherence with 5e.
Yeah. Maybe you could have cut out some of the spells to,
Yeah.
There is arcane muscles, the spell. Your
I
muscles
did see
swell
arcane
with
muscles.
Power.
I almost forgot. I was like, was that this book? It's
Yeah.
also like one of the first ones in the book. So I was like, all right, Muscle Wizard, you got me.
They listen to the community. They know what you want. It's really hard to be a muscle wizard. In 5e.
I cast punch. That's what they want.
You have I cast punch. Okay, well, so that's Level Up 5e, I think, is for a very specific type of audience, and I think it serves that audience at a really solid B level.
Yeah.
It's a passing grade.
Yeah. C+, B-. C's get degrees. It'll work.
That's right. We have one more real clone system to talk about, and that is Tales of the Valiant by Kobold Press and lead designer Celeste Konowich.
That's right. And this was one of the first and early announcement in an early edition, and it is out and ready to play. There's a SRD doc on koboldpress.com. I like Kobold Press. They've been around for a long time. They do the thankless work of putting out third-party supplements, and they've been doing it for a long time. So I was happy to see this, and I'm glad to see that it was at the start already like pretty successful. But what have we got here with Tales of the Valiant?
Right. So I would say, this one's tough. I would say if you are looking for 5e that is 5.5, Like if you are like, I want the 2024 D&D books, but I don't like Wizards, or I don't like the way Wizards took the system. This one is the closest to that ideal. And that like makes sense. Like Cobalt Press like wrote half of 5th edition. So
yeah, right. There's one, so we might as well just like start by talking about it. There's one really big, really small, and also really big change that Kobold Press made to 5e, because generally it's very much the same game. Like in terms of like the fundamental, like what's there, there's not much difference. Like there's been some polish, and they've cut some things, and they've improved some spells and some class abilities, but it's I don't have a lot to say about that because it's not like a major change, but they have added one mechanic, and I think this is really clever because they've mostly kept the game close to 5e, but they've added one very simple mechanic that to me really like fundamentally changes the game in a positive way, and that's luck. I think this is really, really, really good, really smart.
Yeah, the mechanic is not long. Would you let me see. I'm not on the luck page. Just read us how luck works.
I will explain. It's very short. When you create your character, start with 0 luck. You gain luck in the following ways. Once per turn, when you fail to hit with an attack roll or fail a save, gain 1 luck. The GM can award 1 luck as a reward for a clever idea, excellent role-playing, or pursuing an interesting rather than optimal choice. The GM can award any amount of luck to 1 or more PCs for surviving difficult encounters or achieving story goals. You can have a maximum of 5 luck at one time. If you already have 5 luck and gain more, you must immediately roll a d4 and reset your luck total to the number rolled. You may spend luck for a 1-for-1 bonus to any check you make. For example, if you have 4 luck and roll a 13 on the die, you can spend 2 luck to make your result a 15. Alternatively, immediately after you make a check, attack ability or save, you can spend 3 luck to re-roll a d20 used for the check. Luck can't stop a critical miss or on a 1 or create a critical hit by adding up to 20, blah, 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 so on and so forth. That's it. That's all there is to it.
So I think luck really works in that the numbers really don't matter in D20 systems like 5e and its clones, right? They could be replaced by just the percentage yes or no, right? Because you're just getting somewhere in 5% increments between 100% and 5%. If the game was like if your dice were a black box where you just put that percentage in and it gave you a yes or a no, then we wouldn't need luck. But what happens is players miss by 1 or 2 and they feel bad. And they want some way of like controlling their destiny, some meta currency to interact with. And I think luck works really nicely for this.
And if you listen to our episode on meta currencies, like we talked a lot about why they're good and what they can be used for. And I don't feel like I would love to play test this, but I can already see how this is going to work at the table, right? This is going to have the effect of rewarding and encouraging trying, right? You get luck when you fail. Yeah. That means that it doesn't feel like shit when something doesn't work or doesn't feel as bad because you're like, oh, well, at least I have a luck. And it encourages you to use it to, mitigate those close calls. And that creates, we talked about this, like a virtuous cycle, right? It keeps it's an engine, right? It keeps the game moving. People try, they fail. They have luck that helps them succeed, but then they spent their luck. They need to get more luck, so they're going to try and fail. I love this. I think this is such a good idea. Other systems don't need this as badly as D&D does. D&D really badly needs this because it is one of the few systems where it is just like straight up fail, pass, fail, right? Yes, no, like black box that says, yes, you succeed, no, you fail. And it also feels especially punishing in D&D to like not do anything. Like you roll, especially on low levels, if you're like rolling to hit and you miss, that might be the only thing you do that turn. and that feels bad. But like luck really like helps deal with that. I think this is a really, really smart mechanic that the Kobold Press added in.
So when we read this, we like started reading this a couple weeks ago, I put this in my regular 5e D&D game, and you reading it pointed one thing out to me, which I was not running it as it works in Kobold Press. I was any check you fail, you get a luck, which is not. Apparently, it's just attack rolls and saving throws
and saves.
I
think I maybe read a version where it was any check you failed.
So I was using it any check. I could see why they didn't put that into the rules, because it, I guess, would encourage players to constantly be asking the DM to make checks of any kind. Like attack rolls and saving throws are like the things that like one, the players have complete control over or no control of, or all the other ones are kind of a negotiation when you're making a check. So I see why that's not in there, but I was running it where any check you fail, you get a luck point. It seemed to work fine at my table that way.
Yeah, I was describing it in such a way that skill checks also would give you luck points. So that's on me. That's how I would run it. And it sounds like you did it that way, and that would be good. Both would work. I can see why they didn't write that in, but I think the risk of players trying to farm luck. I mean, that's the whole point, though, right? Like you can't farm it. You reach a cap pretty quickly. So like
I think you could farm it. Oh yeah. Okay, yeah, you would reach a cap, but the idea is, okay, at some tables with some DMs, there are players who are like, I'm going to make a perception check, and I would say, well, no, you can't. You can see everything you can see right now. I don't need you to make one. But they would be like, I'm doing it anyway, right? And then they fail and they get a luck. Right.
But here's the thing. I think they've already designed around this, right? Like, so say your players have been little stinkers, and they've, accumulated 5 luck across the board. And the encounter starts with like an enemy spellcaster casting Stinking Cloud on them. Yeah. If they fail that check, oh great, they get a luck. But then they immediately have to roll a d4 and reset their luck. So they're punished for being little stinkers. Like I feel like Kobold Press needs to have more faith in their mechanic, because I think you could use it for any failed roll, which would encourage just more risk taking, which I like. I don't know.
I agree with you.
That's how I would run it.
I was trying to defend their weird decision making here, but
I get it. I think they need to have more faith in themselves, though. I think it's good, and they should stand by it.
Rob, have you ever had a player with the luck feat from 2014 D&D?
I sure have, Matt. I've had so many players with the luck feat.
Yep. One, because it's a good, possibly overpowered feat in 2014. Yeah. But the players who have it have a ton of fun, because interacting with a luck mechanic is fun.
I never gave them a hard time about it, because they always were so excited to use their luck. Even that, it was clearly like the best level 1 feat, but players do love it.
Other big picture things that we want to say about Tales from the Valiant, I feel like there's less to say because it is so similar to the 2014 rules, but they have simplified down 2 things that I really like. Or sorry, actually, I got 3 things, if you're ready for all 3 of them.
I'm ready for all 3.
Okay. They simplified subclasses down. In the core book, every class has 2 subclasses. It's plenty of subclasses. Talents work as half feats. You always get a 1 ability score improvement, and then whatever thing you get. There's 3 sets of feats, and different classes have access to different sets. That's cool. And then the third thing is that every weapon, and especially martial weapons, have a weapon option, which is a thing you can do with that weapon that's better than a normal, or has an advantage over a normal. It's a lateral move from a normal attack. And then martial classes get to use those weapon options as a bonus action, usually.
I like this too. And the sort of from the big picture, the design is better, the layout is better. It's simple, but it doesn't go as far as I would like in making adjustments, changes to 5e. Again, my gold standard there is still Nimble. I love what Nimble did. But they have shaved where they can and cut when they can and simplified where possible. And this is overall, frankly, to me, just a better version of 5e. Like this feels like 5.5e to me. And if that's what you were looking for from D&D 2025, this might be the actual game that you were looking for.
Yeah, let me give you an example. Like the Battle Master Fighter, instead of having this very, at least in my experience having one at my table, very limited pool of here are your 3 dice to do 3 cool things one time a day. They just get like more options, and I think they're pretty well designed. There's 1 or 2 that aren't super great, but yeah, like I like the way they redesigned the Battlemaster Fighter. It's complicated without, or it's cool without just giving you a pool to burn through.
I mean, there's a lot of that. A lot of things that are very familiar, but just slightly better. If there's a criticism to be made of this, it's just like it's mostly just like slight improvements on 5e. This is not a dramatic change in either direction. It's not there's not a huge number of additions or subtractions, but everything has been given a substantial and much appreciated, coat of polish and, shave and a haircut.
It's really like a patch. It's like, okay, the barbarian doesn't get exhausted after its rage. It's a lot of the small changes. If Level Up 5e was the big changes, the ultra hardcore 5e community was clamoring for, this is the small changes that I would say your average DM on the street might have recognized.
I mean, it's like a collection of some of the best and simplest like house rules. It's but I mean that in a good way. Yeah.
I think if you're like, okay, you're being too nice to this, one place where it fails since we're like talking about classes or in the general class zone, they added the Mechanist class as a substitute for the Artificer. The Artificer's not part of the SRDs, so you got to rebuild it from the ground up. It's essentially it's about where the Barbarian is for me. It's a fighter that just has a cool item and can eventually make some other cool items. And maybe that's what you want for the Artificer. I was like, that's fine.
I was also not impressed.
I have a Barbarian at home.
The Mechanist. I mean, we spent a lot of time on the Artificers, and there's plenty of problems with the Artificer, but I was not super impressed with the Mechanist as a replacement.
One of the things that I think was one of the great successes of 5e is that every class feels different and fun at level 1. For example, the Mechanist at level 1 is nothing. You're a worse fighter for that first level. Then at level 2, you're kind of okay, but like, that first level of Mechanist is like, why did I pick this class? And you don't feel that way about any of the other classes.
Yeah.
I have another criticism if you're ready, or I'm
ready.
I can let up, which is
no.
So they did something I liked, which is they simplified having to know 9 different spell lists down to 4. Arcane, Primal, and Divine, and Weird, but spelled weirdly with a Y. The problem is most of the classes just use Arcane, and there's no, unless I miss something, no way to be like, I'm a sorcerer who uses the Primal spell list. The Bard, for example, just uses the Arcane spell list, which I think is like a huge buff to the Bard. They have access to the full set of wizard and sorcerer spells. And I was looking at the Weird list, which the only class that uses it is the Warlock. And I was like, what? Why didn't you just give the Bard, throw 1 or 2 more spells on here, and you'd have all of the Bard spells that you would want on the Weird list? And it's also a shorter list, so it's it's less complicated.
Yeah, I mean, this smacks of the, I don't know, primal, occult, arcane,
A Pathfinder.
divine division in Pathfinder, which I liked, and not just Pathfinder. Other games have done this, and I don't dislike the intent. This has a similar problem to some of the things that we were talking about with Level Up, is that they didn't have the courage to make changes in a way that would, make this significant, right? Because the word or weird source, right, only really works for the Warlock, because they weren't willing to change the Bard enough or change the spell list enough to make it fit with weird, and that's, if there's something that's disappointing, it's like trying to do something or hinting at something neat and different, but like not being willing to follow through.
Yeah. Warlocks actually get spells now also, which is I think good. Only having 2 spells per short rest and having a weird different rest economy than other spellcasters just tended to upset parties where you have one cleric and one warlock. I think that's a good change. There's also like a ton of, this one is the one that has the most quality of life changes, right? For example, spell levels are called spell circles. If you've ever tried explaining the difference between your level and a spell level to a brand new
huge
player,
change. Yes, yeah.
You know how nice this
right.
is.
If you've ever played with somebody who didn't grow up playing D&D, and they're like, "Well, wait, I'm level 3. Why can't I cast a level 3 spell?" And then you're like, "Well, let me explain how spell levels
stupid
work."
This game is.
Circles is so much better. Yes.
Yeah. You got to rename that. If you didn't rename that, some of the other games we've talked about have also renamed it, so I should call that out. But this one does as well. I think like big picture for me, this one is just really, really close to 5e. You can probably use 5e stuff. Rules as written, your characters will be probably a little more powerful than a 2014 thing based on my read through of this, but not by too much. The question is, right, is it worth the switch? And I think the answer for a lot of DMs will be yes, right? Which is, I want the things that sucked about D&D fixed, and I want to keep playing the same game, or I don't want to give Hasbro my money, but I want to keep playing D&D. Well, here you go.
Yeah, I mean, the clear audience for this one is somebody who likes D&D, does not want to give Wizards any more money, and wants something that runs a little better, but isn't going to like be complicated to explain to their group. And I heartily recommend this one to such a person. I would just generally like most people to be bolder, to dream a little bigger, I suppose, and branch out into something that's got D&D flavor but doesn't feel the need to adhere to 5e's wonky rules in the first place. But if you want to stay with the familiar, this is the best version of that. Like, in my opinion, I think Tales of the Valiant stays the closest, improves the most, and has the best like presentation and polish of this type of game.
Yeah. No,
this version of 5e clone.
Yeah, no, I agree. Like, you've got, again, like heritage and culture separated out, but they're not super in depth because, hey, we do want to make our characters in 2 hours and get going, right? You do have backgrounds and that stuff. The art is good, if not brilliant. The layout, again, is it's okay. It is. I would again say it's a downgrade from the published D&D books. Reading through it, but it's easy to like print off. I guess it's black stuff on white background.
It's boilerplate. It is easier to read than DC 20 or Level Up. It's not very flashy, but I don't know. It's functional.
Okay. Speaking of, is there anything else we want to say about Tales of the Valiant, TOV? Other than I think the name is
No, I mean I think we've covered it. I like this one. Probably won't play it, but I'm glad it exists. I do really like the luck mechanic. Clearly, I think I maybe misunderstood it or read a different version of it. But you should go whole hog on it. I think it's great. But yeah.
Yeah, I would say, if nothing else, steal the luck mechanic for any 5e game you're playing. And then I guess that leaves us at the big picture question. We've now talked about 4 5e clones, one that's pared down, one that is Pathfinder plus this, one that is enhanced character creation and a bazillion options, and one that is very, very similar but refined. And at least for me, if I have to just like make the switch to a new system, I'm probably going to go, with something like Nimble, because I have a group that needs their character sheets to fit on half of a page. Or I'll go with Tales from the Valiant, or of the Valiant, because it's so compatible and refined. But I'm probably going to go with something that is new, that is built from the ground up, which we've also got. Both of these, as of recording, are still coming down the pike.
We've talked about these both before. There's Daggerheart and there's Draw Steel. Yeah, I feel like if I were going to continue to play a Dungeons and Dragons style game, this is the direction that I would go. I would want to play something that is completely redesigned. Listen, I hate the D20. I hate the D20. I don't like it. I don't want to roll it. I don't want my game to be built around it. And the problem with all these 5e clones is that they don't get away from it. And Daggerheart and Draw Steel do, at least like in some respect. And yeah, I think that there are more games that adhere to the spirit of D&D while like unshackling themselves from the rules that are worth your consideration if you're a fan. I think Pathfinder 2e is a great example. I think Draw Steel, Daggerheart, these are games that have the ethos of D&D at their heart, have the style of play down, but like they're not bound to the decisions that were made 50 years ago.
Yeah, maybe one or both of these.
Insurance adjuster's basement.
Right. Weird wargaming bros, right? Yeah, I mean, you can go back and listen to our reviews of the play tests of either of these, but like, I think if you want an aspect of your play refined, if you have players who love World of Warcraft or the tactical combat in Baldur's Gate 3, or like League of Legends, or just want combats that are cool or fun, right? Draw Steel will one day, very soon, be sitting there right for you. And from the direction we saw that was going, it seems like it's going to give you those things while retaining, as Rob said, the ethos of Dungeons and Dragons. And if you want fights where your characters feel things, like in I wouldn't say in the Critical Role show, but in the like Critical Role TV show, where like characters are like, oh no, I feel bad in this fight because something's wrong, then maybe Daggerheart is for you.
And we specifically steered away from things like Dungeon Crawl Classics or Shadow Dark in this review because those are not 5e clones per se.
They are D&D clones. They're just not 5e.
They're D&D clones. But even so, like especially people who just want like they're like, oh, I want to do D&D. I want to do dungeons. I want to, fight goblins. I'm like, I think you might have more fun with something like this than with 5e. And yeah, I like this is the big picture problem with these 5e clones in my opinion, and we kind of been dancing around this for 2 episodes, is clearly there are people who want this, but like, I think that I think that, sorry, please forgive me for making assumptions about strangers on the internet, but like, I think they want this, but I think what they actually would enjoy more is one of the many better games that we have just described that don't feel the need to stick to the formula quite so strongly. And maybe I'm wrong. Maybe people really do love 5e, but the reason why I'm comfortable saying that is, God, we've read so many fucking RPG books, Matt. I've read so many, and I'm as close as you'll ever get to an expert. And I don't think there's anything very distinct or memorable or important about 5th edition. Like, at this point, it is not something that needs to be saved or stuck to. Like, almost everything that you can get out of it, you can get the same thing, but it works better, has fewer rules, and is better written, somewhere else.
Yeah. It is useful to remind oneself that for some people, not all of them, that 5th edition, it wasn't the system itself. It was that lightning in a bottle moment of more people playing D&D. And I think, and again, that's something that 5th edition wanted, clearly, and that's something that I want too. Right, is showing up and there being lots of people ready to play at the bar's open game night, which, in 2014 did not exist. Yet within 2 miles of my house are 2 bars that have open D&D game nights that are well attended. It's amazing.
Every community center in Portland has somebody's put up a sign, Wednesday night D&D or after school D&D. Like, that's great. And listen, there are people out there who are saying, like, if you play Dungeons and Dragons 5th edition, you are a bad person and you should feel bad. Oh. I am not saying that. You can have fun playing 5e. It's not what I would do, but I'm not like judging you for doing it.
Rob, I'm using myself as a shield for your criticism in that I have a 5th edition game that still plays regularly, and we are not changing editions. So you can criticize, you can be anti-5th edition because I am 5th edition.
Well, I was also specifically requested, a group of kids wanted me to run a 5th edition game for them, and I did, and it was fun. If they weren't like
D&D, you couldn't sneak in Shadow Dark on them or Tales from the Valiant.
It was too late. One of the kids had already bought the books. Yeah, it was. But the thing is,
it would have been so funny if you had showed up and been like, actually, you, child, are wrong. And you went on a 30-minute rant about system design.
It would have been so
12-year-old is weeping.
And this poor child with his, monster manual and, PHB and, all his little like figurines. I'm like, throw those away, kid. We're playing Shadow Dark. That would have been.
Yeah.
Anyway.
Pull out.
Here's the thing. I believe in all of you. I think you're all smart, intelligent, good looking, discerning people. And I want better for you. And I think that you can do better than 5e. But I'm not going to judge you for playing it, and I don't think it's wrong. But, what the cool thing about what we've been talking about is that there's lots and lots of options now that are better and that are very familiar and can maybe start to, like, move us away from 5e.
Again, I think my conclusion is, in the words of the poet, I'm still going to keep drinking that garbage, It's like I'm still going to keep eating at McDonald's because, the thing is, if I am going to, I run other RPGs, plenty of them. If I am going to take the time and effort to make players learn new rules, we are going whole hog, right? We are going to Daggerheart, right? Yeah. Campaign if I have my druthers, right, campaign 2 with the D&D folks will be Daggerheart. But if it's not, I won't care.
Well, and that sort of makes me wonder because Matt, you and I and our friends went through 3rd edition, 3.5, 4th edition, Pathfinder 1, 5e, Pathfinder 2e. And it was around Pathfinder 2e when my very like patient friends who had been with me through like multiple like rounds of rules changes were like, I don't want to read any more rules.
I'm done.
And if you just started, here's the thing. If you just started in 2014, 15, 16 with 5e, maybe you have a whole lifetime of rules changes ahead of you before you reach the point that I and my friends have gotten to. And you might look at Level Up 5e or DC 20 and be like, yeah, more rules. Let's do that. And if so, I think that's great, and you should. But I guess like the thing is, my players and I have, especially with D&D, have now gone through so many rules changes that, like you, Matt, if I'm going to make people learn any more new rules, we are learning new rules. Like, we're not going to learn like a variation on 5e. We are going to learn Shadow Dark. We're going to learn Mothership. We're going to learn Daggerheart.
The slate is clean. We're not going from Coke to Coke Zero. We're brewing our own, iced tea.
Precisely. Yeah.
No, and I get it. This is a real phenomenon, right? People get stuck in a rule system. Sometimes it happens immediately because you love it so much, and that's great. Sometimes it happens from fatigue, where you've got 10 or 20 years of different editions built into your brain. And you're like, listen, we just got a handle on this one. I'm not going to learn another one that's almost the same but different. And that is, both of those are fine.
Matt,
people are still playing AD&D. People are still playing 3.5.
My frustration with this is similar to my frustration with capitalism, for example. Okay. Like, yes. Here's the thing. No, bear with me. Bear with me.
I'm on this ride.
Capitalism has a lot of problems. It has a lot of positives too. Like, there's good and there's bad.
I agree, Rob. Capitalism is better than feudalism. Your controversial take is
a natural progression.
Yeah.
The scientific progression. The materials they must dialectically go in a direction. But like, you look around America today, and you see how we have organized our society, and my belief is that any person would look at that and say, well, if I were starting from scratch, this is not how I would do it, right? And now, we can't just snap our fingers and change everything, but I get frustrated sometimes because people are like, well, what's your solution? I'm like, I don't, just walk with me here, right? Like, right. There are problems, and I think that it's okay to acknowledge that, like, we wouldn't, if we were trying to design a society that doesn't suck shit, we would do it differently. This is, a problem that I have with a lot of TTRPG design. Yeah. Is like, yeah, okay, it's fine. This is what we've been playing for a long time. It's good enough, but like, we can snap our fingers and start from scratch. So you should periodically step back and be like, what do I want? What is the game that I want to play? Like, not what am I playing? Because like, the sunk costs of like, your group has all the 5e books is not the same as the sunk cost of like, our infrastructure is 100 years old, or like the Constitution
500 years of global oppression and suffering and accumulation, and
it's status quo bias, right? Is like what this
easier.
Is.
Yeah.
I'm
with you. Okay. I wasn't sure where you were going with the capitalism one, but I'm with you 100% now. It's a good analogy.
I'm an optimist and an idealist, and I think that we can all ask for better. And maybe exactly what you want is 5e or a 5e clone, but I think that most people, or many people, might not. And this is a good opportunity, I think, like, to circle back around to these clones, which, like I said, I actually liked most of these. I have a lot of respect for the work that they did. I wish these people had taken much of their design talent and just started from scratch like MCDM did, and the way that Darrington Press did. But I like most of them. But this is a good opportunity for you and your group to say, is this what we want?
Right.
Or if we're going to learn a new system, are we going to learn a new system?
This is the paradox. We reviewed 4 of these. 3 of the 4, I would say, are or at least 2 of the 4, right? Which is insane batting average if they were baseball players. Hit it out of the park in that they are better than 5e. But like the paradox is like if you're putting all this effort into it, being marginally better than something else when you can start from scratch. And again, if you're the person who wants the marginally better thing, I think you have some options now, which is cool.
Yeah.
Or you can play Daggerheart or Pathfinder 2e or Shadow Dark or Labyrinth Lord or Draw Steel when it comes out.
Yeah. So yeah, I don't know. Tell us what you thought. There are more of these.
Oh God,
by the way.
yeah, there were so many. We had to like pare it down to just the ones that I thought were interesting. And
if there's one of those that's your favorite, I'm sorry if we gave it short shrift. There may be an opportunity for us to review some of the other ones because some of them are interesting. But as you can see, we've already spent 3 hours talking about just 4 of them. So we did have to sort of like draw the line somewhere.
All right, well,
but do write us and let us know what you thought.
Keep rolling D20s, keep rolling damage separately from those D20s, keep making save checks and all your favorite types of checks. And keep sending us any other recommendations for RPGs. Please, if you like this show and you want bonus episodes where we talk about other wackier things, you can head over to patreon.com/dungeonmasternone. Check that out too.
You can write us at dameofnone@gmail.com. Please rate and review if you haven't already. Thanks for listening, everybody, and keep rolling them dice.